Hi, welcome to Infusion Health, the podcast. I'm comedian Chris Patrick, a.k.a. Self-Proclaimed Power Man. And I'm here with my co-host and significant other, Rach.
Hey, guys.
Now, today, in doing research for this, listening to some of the other podcasts and the YouTube videos, this was like, I'm like, this is going to be interesting, and I really couldn't wait to have this interview. Now, he is an emotional intelligence coach. His name is Brian Klatt, and he's calling from the great state of Connecticut, and he's going to talk to us exactly what an emotional coach is and what an emotional intelligence coach does. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Okay, like I said, listening to podcasts and looking at YouTube videos, I was like, this is going to be interesting. So exactly, what is an emotional intelligence coach, and what exactly do you do?
Sure. So I won't speak for all emotional intelligence coaches because there's a big old bucket of folks who like to dabble in that space. But what I tend to focus on with emotional intelligence is working with individuals to understand what beliefs they're holding on to, what it's resulting in as far as limitations that's preventing them from moving forward, and then how to use emotion and to change your beliefs and actually start to change your outcome.
Okay, so when you say like emotions that they're holding on to, like, okay, somebody's
Frustrated.
Frustrated. Somebody wants to start their own business. I say that because I'm an entrepreneur. Somebody wants to start their own business, but they can't get it going, or they can't. You say they have some emotions locked up deep inside that they're trying to get out or need to get out before they can move forward. What exactly is that?
Yeah. So what I would tend to do is say you were trying to start your own business.
Okay.
And the first thing is are you even clear on what that means? So as an emotional intelligence coach, as any type of coach, the goal, the first thing we want to do is understand what's your real goal. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're starting a business, if your goal is just to make money, is your goal to bring about a better world? Is your goal to help to give something down, pass something down to your kids? So what's your real goal and what it is that you're doing? And then yes, if there's a reason why you're not achieving it. So if a person has been attempting to do something over and over and they're finding, blocks, things that are preventing them from moving forward, 9 times out of 10, if you're working with me, I'm going to have you focus on your belief system, things that you hold firm to your beliefs. And then what I'll wind up doing is working with individuals to say, all right, so attached to those beliefs are a series of emotions and how you're dealing with those beliefs. Mm-hmm. So frustration is an emotion that's coming out of a belief that you're holding personally that's preventing you from achieving a goal. Okay. And so I will focus kind of on that triangle of items to help people start to understand the limiting beliefs, how to start leveraging their emotions to better to create a better behavior, to create a different belief system that allows them to start achieving their goals. And the one thing I will throw out, one thing that I'm very different on with other emotional intelligence coaches is I don't believe in the concept of external empathy as far as something I want to coach around. I believe everything is contained within you.
Okay.
You can control you. Everything is about you. Okay. And so I'll never say, well, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Okay. Because then you're just having a conversation with yourself. I want you to have a conversation with you and get real about you.
Okay. Well, let's look a little bit back in history. Like when I was, everything I've done, I've always looked at people before me. So let's go back a little bit in history. Now, Henry Ford, we know Henry Ford had the Model T, but he had a bunch of cars before he had the Model T. And then we got somebody like Stephen King, the writer. Okay. He had like 6 books that did not get published, that they wouldn't publish before his 7th book, and they finally published, and then he became the great Stephen King, writer that he is today. And then you have somebody like Muhammad Ali, who went on TV as a young kid, said, I'm going to be the greatest of all time, and he became the greatest. So what was in them, or what was something that was in them that made them keep going?
So again, I go back to there's a purpose. Mm-hmm. So each one of them had a purpose. everybody on this planet has a purpose. You have a purpose. I have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And the key is can you find that purpose? And then when you do, can you then tie what it is that you want to be to it?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you use someone like Muhammad Ali and you took a look at his kind of career arc, it went well beyond just being the greatest boxer.
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad Ali went from, he went through an entire evolution, a complete evolution of himself, from the name change to developing the personality and actually going away from, I think right before him was Rocky Marciano, who was just known as, put your face in front of somebody else's face and who can beat who into a pulp. Muhammad Ali was very different. Like he was a different style, and he didn't want to be just a boxer. He wanted to become an icon.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Ford is, using that as an example, same thing. Henry Ford realized that really automotive cars, they weren't supposed to be just for the elite,
Mm-hmm.
the everyday person. And once folks are starting to recognize of, who it is that they are, what their purpose is on the planet, and align those two, then the goals become very easy, and then things start to flow for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I got a question for you. He's talking about entrepreneurship, but we don't always have entrepreneurs on here. We also have like people dealing with their families. So, for instance, my son will get mad, get so frustrated. He's 24, pack his stuff, walk out of the house. Like, how do you prevent yourself from going to that extreme?
All right. So if we're talking about your son, and again, I'm always very cautious in these spaces because
Sure.
there's always a difference between therapy and coaching.
Absolutely.
Right. And so therapy is basically when you can no longer function in society. You're finding yourself becoming non-functional. Coaching. So if I'm working with someone who's having an issue with how they respond to a situation, right? So I'm going to talk to that individual and first ask the most very simple question about what is it that you think has made you angry, right? So if someone's packing their stuff up and they're walking out the door, number one, the first question, after understanding why is it that you think you're angry, the real thing is, so what is it you're trying to get out of walking out that door?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know why it is you're walking out that door, and you don't know why it is that you think you're angry, it's very difficult to move to the next step, which is to say, well, what is it you're really trying to get at?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll talk in generalities. People who tend to like to walk away from something out of anger is that it gives them a sense of control. I can't control this conversation. I can't control this, but I can control myself, and I can walk out, and that is something I can control.
Sure.
Now, in the end, it may or may not result in what they were trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were just trying to escape from a situation. Maybe they were trying to assert their control over something. Maybe it is that they think that by walking out, it gives them some level of independence. Without having a conversation with those individuals, it's very difficult to assume why that person is looking to walk out the door. But the goal of coaching is to get people to start to recognize that unless what your goal was to alienate yourself and walk out and become, isolated,
Right.
The action you just took did not give you most likely what you were looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so then what you start to do is you do start to unpack it. I've worked with folks who are, I tend to work with college age students, young business folks or folks who are, in the upper levels of business who are trying to go and transition. And what I will say is that what I personally have found with individuals in that, 16 to 30 range, is that there's a lot of external focus.
Mm-hmm.
I.e., if you're having a conversation with your son, it's you that's made your son mad, and your son will say, well, my mom, made me mad, or my mom said something. or the TV did something, or there's always an external reason, justification for the behavior. And again, when I focus with folks, I say, nah, none of this is about anybody external. If your mom said something, it's just words. And it doesn't matter if she said it angrily or happily. It's just words. The question is you. And so what I would be asking your son, after engaging with them, would be something along the lines of, all right, so now you think you know why you're mad. And then I would turn around and say, all right, so where is it that you see yourself doing that? And what I want people to do is look at themselves and say, all right, so why is it you're really mad at yourself? And because a lot of that comes back to your values. And so it may be that in the end, and again, this is, I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, but what winds up happening many times is people get mad because they're not behaving in a way that aligns with the person they want to be. So say somebody really wants to be a caring individual. They see themselves as a caring individual, and somebody across from them is doing things, and internally they're coming up with this concept of, I don't want to care for this person anymore. So they get mad, but they're not mad at what you're saying. They're mad because their internal values of, I want to be a caring person, they're breaking them because they're looking at you and saying, I don't care. I'm caring less about you because of what you're saying. And so that's a target of what we would go after.
Yeah. Well, my thing is like, whenever I'm working on something, like I said, entrepreneur, there's times you do get frustrated, but one of the things I found that keeps me going or pushes me is just like, hey, I just got to keep pushing forward. This is, I just look at it as a small setback. I can figure it out. I can move forward. I can take it, to the next level. I just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So the interesting part is emotional intelligence is not so much about thinking. We like to think a lot. And we like to, and when we talk with folks on emotional intelligence, you'll hear people immediately come out with, well, I feel like. And once those types of conversations start, you realize that where we are is people rationalizing what it is that they're doing. So even the ability and willingness to push yourself, to kind of break through and as you said, move to the next level. Yeah, you might do that in a short-term burst, but the question is it sustainable? And when you're doing things in a way, whether you're using self-deprecating, phrases, if you're breaking down and breaking your own personal rules or your own personal boundaries that are true to who you are, in the end, not even in the end, in a very, at some point in time, you will break down, and those tools that you're using are no longer going to be functional for you. And you also have the potential to no longer just have tools breaking down, but your body breaking down, your thoughts breaking down, your relationships breaking down. It all has the potential to start breaking down if you're using what I would call the negative ways to push yourself forward.
Okay, well, like when you talk negative ways, like I know some people who, working or doing stuff in work, they're frustrated here, they're frustrated there. This stuff is happening, this stuff is going on, and they lead to like drugs and alcohol. And I'm always like, well, all that's going to do is just mask the problem. But but then you look at it and you go, hey, you know what? If you just deal with the problem right on, years down the line or however long down the line, that you're going to find out I didn't need the drugs and alcohol. I could have just dealt with this back then, and then I could have moved on.
Well, I don't think it just has to do with drugs and alcohol. I think it has to do with also people having a ton of back carriage, broken relationships. And Brian, I did hear you say in your YouTube video and your podcast that your background isn't like you enjoyed making everybody happy and stuff like that. Your emotional kindness as a child was, correct me if I'm wrong, like I can't remember off the top of my head, but it wasn't. And you were talking to a teacher, or a teacher was talking to you, and she was wanting you to reflect some emotional intelligence, and yours was different than the other students.
Yeah. So yeah, I was speaking with a group, or with on another podcast, and we were talking about the concept of emotional intelligence, and whether or not there's only one way to display it, and we were talking about compassion and caring, and the idea was, well, we want to teach kids to be caring, and a way that we have kids do that is, again, show empathy towards another individual. And what I had expressed was, growing up as a kid, I was very frequently viewed as cold and uncaring, because I didn't have comfort in expressing that towards a lot of individuals. But if you ever saw me outdoors, I was that way with animals, with dogs. And I think the example I used was, if you saw me walking down the street, I'd be, in the rain, I'd be the kid that's picking up worms off the sidewalk and putting it on the grass, because they couldn't help themselves. They were stuck there, and I wanted just to give them that little extra thing. And so I was using that as an example of empathy doesn't always look the way you think empathy does.
Sure.
And the more that you try to force people into displaying it and showing it in the way that you are comfortable in seeing it, you're actually missing the opportunity for others to develop it themselves and show it the way that they are most adept at showing it.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so, I'll go. So, Chris, if I go back to your point of your frustration, when you say, I want to deal with that frustration, the one thing I will always say is that the point I would try to make with you is the frustration is with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not with yourself. It's not with your surroundings. It's not with things happening to you. It's not your spouse. It's not your car. It's not your dog. It's not the weather. It's you. Mm-hmm. And so that frustration is coming from you personally not living up to a value that you have at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're trying to accomplish something or deal with a situation, and you're bringing forward something that isn't core to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's resulting in your frustration.
Well, I figured, especially on the golf course.
Exactly. Especially on the golf course. I gave that game up.
I can't give it up, but I still need to fix my slice.
Yeah. No.
Trying to get me out there.
Yeah, you want to see frustration, see me out at the golf course. but I'm not one who wraps my clubs around trees or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand, and but it does come out, right? It's funny how it comes out then.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we're looking at it, and what are we frustrated with? So I'll just keep following down your path. I'm frustrated that my ball sliced. No, you're not frustrated that you sliced. The frustration is about something else. And I'll give you an example of someone that I've worked with in the past who wasn't talking about their golf game.
Mm-hmm.
But their frustration was that whenever they did something that wasn't perfect, and they were raised, their family life was such that perfection was important.
Mm-hmm.
Was that what they found was that when they did something that was viewed as imperfect,
mm-hmm.
that they felt frustrated, and the reason was that they stopped. To them, one of their core values was caring. They wanted to be a caring person, and what they found is they weren't caring about themselves at that moment. Mm-hmm. They were mad at themselves for not being perfect, and so that's where the frustration comes from, because otherwise it's just a ball going in a direction.
Yeah.
Right. There's no reason to be frustrated about a ball going in a direction. Mm-hmm. It's emotionally you have you're breaking a personal rule that you have, that results in that frustration.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen people like that. Like I've been in the entertainment business, and I've seen people that, and I've seen artists and singers, and they keep reworking this song, or redoing this, or reworking on this painting, and it's like, listen, you've worked on it long enough. It's completed. Just put it out there. It's done. Just put it out there and move on to the next thing. But but then years down the line, I said, I should have just put it out there. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to say, hey, it's done. Boom. Put it out there. Let people say what they're going to say about it. Like it, don't like it, but then move on to the next thing. But we do have perfectionists out there that just like, it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. It's like, come on. It gets to a point where you just got to say, okay, it's done. It's out there. Boom. Just move on to the next thing,
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone's different. Like,
yeah.
So,
yeah.
So one artist may want to not put it out there because they're afraid of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Rejection.
I deal with a lot of people who are afraid of success. Like, deathly afraid of success.
Exactly.
So, and people go, what do you mean I'm afraid of success? And we start going through it, and they start to understand potentially where that's coming from. So everyone's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, the first question is instead of telling them what to do, and again, for those who grew up with a coach, like they played in sports, like you looked at your coach, and a lot of times the coach was instructing you on how to field a ground ball, or how to shoot a basket, or how to play hockey or skate or do gymnastics or whatever. That's where we tie coaches a lot to.
Mm-hmm.
As we get older into these spaces and we start working with coaches when they're more adult outside of that realm of sports, really the coach is trying to get you to understand, get you to, asking you the question of, so why don't you want to put that art out there?
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that, as a coach, that the answer that I hear, a lot of times is, well, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And, once someone is saying that they don't know, you got to have a lot of techniques to try to help them get at what it is that they do know, that they just don't want to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So for our listeners, with entrepreneurship or family, because we're coming to the end of our time in about 7 minutes, what you're saying is, in your coaching, you don't say, live in the other person's shoes. You say, okay, you were fighting with your sibling. What is going on with you to be so frustrated that you need to be fighting?
Yeah. It's for me, from my coaching, it is all self-reflective.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the reason is a lot of times, if you start trying to do things external to yourself, it's not something you have control over.
Yeah.
Right. I can't control whether you say something or you do something, or if I am starting to try to control that, now I become manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a strong believer in the old you reap what you sow,
Mm-hmm.
which is, if you yourself can start becoming a more aligned person, a more positive person, a more caring person, whatever it is that you're trying to bring about, you will start to bring that out both in others, and you will find others that are that way coming to you.
Well, back to what you were saying as far as being afraid of success, and I've seen it many times, especially if you ever watch like Behind the Music. You have somebody who they were just an average person, singer, songwriter, and all that. Next thing you know, they got this. They put this album out. This album becomes a success. Number one, they're touring. Everybody loves them and all that. And then the next thing you know, it's the same story. They end up like in depression and all that. And it's always like, I wasn't expecting to be this popular. I wasn't expecting this to be that great and all that, and then I'm always like, well, why did you go into the music business? And, and it's like, you always get the story. It all came happening like at once, like overnight. It was just like, boom, I was this big sensation. And all of a sudden it just like, it scared me,
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's a lot of that. People So people who look forward and see that success could be there and they don't want it will intentionally sabotage themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't just have to be in entertainment. It doesn't have to be just in work. It can be in family too.
Yeah.
You wind up with parents that say, well, what happens if I am an actual successful parent?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean about how I viewed myself growing up, or how it is that I defined what success was? You end up with a situation where if you are afraid of success and what that success might bring to you, and as the example you gave, Chris, about the person now has a complete loss of privacy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Their name is everywhere. This wasn't their goal. This isn't why they got into music. They didn't get into music to make money. They got into music for maybe making people smile. Maybe it was an outlet for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to keep it personal. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of reasons why people do things, but there is a fear of success. Fear is one of those more powerful emotions that we carry around with that is a strong motivator. It's one of those root emotions that that helps keep you alive and helps keep you protected, but also helps prevent you from taking steps that maybe you think you want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like you were saying, there's that sometimes people do get like that. They do become prisoners of their own success, or like you said, I didn't have a really good childhood. All of a sudden, I do have a fear of being a good parent, or being different from where I grew up. Or they think you're saying that they think they need to be a rotten parent because they had a rotten parent. It's like, well, no, you can change that path. You can change that course,
Definitely. It comes down to, it's one of those old adages, which is, your destiny isn't necessarily predetermined.
Yeah.
You get to take paths, and throughout life, you get to choose which path you're going to take.
Exactly.
And each one's going to lead you to a place.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to choose which one you want to go to. Do you want to get to the top of that mountain? Do you want to stay in the foothills, or do you just want to stay in your house and never leave your bed?
Yeah.
All of those are options to you.
Yeah.
But they're your options, right? It's you're not stuck in your bed because the man kept you down. You're stuck in your bed because you want to be stuck in your bed.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's the thing too, because I've seen people, and I've talked to people, and a lot of times what I've seen is that, people in jail, or people are doing this, or people, are messed up on drugs and all that. And somebody once told me, they said, life is about choices, Nobody put a gun up to your head to make you do those drugs. You decided to do them, and this is why you're here. Nobody made you go and rob that, gas station. You decided to do it, and this is why you're here. So these are the choices you've made, and you're here because of these choices. So life's about choices. If you choose to do that, as opposed to saying, hey, I don't want to do this because if I do this, this is going to put me in jail. This is going to put me in somewhere. So then I choose not to do it. I choose to do this, or go get a job, or do this, or get off of drugs,
Yeah. I will also say this, though, and I speak from experience, as a person who has had a gun put to their head
Ooh.
and told to do something when I was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I had a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
I could have chosen to do what the person with the gun told me to do, or I could have done something else.
Yep.
I chose to do what the person with the gun told me to do.
Right.
Why? I
There's
probably would have
plenty of YouTube. Right, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there, though, of people who know Krav Maga that do something different, and they end up with a gun in their hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The point is
he was being my dad was being robbed at the convenience store he used to work at, and he said, I'm taking the other path. It ended safely for him, and the guy got arrested, but you always have a choice.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of times people would look at that situation and say, I don't have a choice. Even in that moment, you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I will tell you, I'll raise my hand. Fear kicked in for me and said, give everything out of your pocket into that person's bag.
Yeah.
I probably would have did the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Even so much so that, and again, when that person left, they said count to 100. And I was with an adult at the time who wanted to call the cops and shut the door immediately. I was so afraid in that moment, that situation, that I said, no, we're counting to 100. I don't know if they're sitting out there listening to me.
Right.
Like if they're around the corner, like, oh, you got up at 90, and they're going to come back. Like, no, I'm counting to 100 out loud, just like that person told me to do. But it was all a choice. Like the manager next to me was saying, no, shut the door. It's been 10 seconds. Close it and call the police. There's always a choice. No matter how much you think someone else is doing something to you, it's your choice how you respond.
Well, Brian, this has been
somebody's yelling at you, jump up and give him a hug. Don't just
You could. Yeah, absolutely could. You could look at, like, Sigmund Freud would ask him about, what that gun represents as it relates to him and his feelings towards his mother. I mean, who knows? You could have done all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that's the proper time to do psychoanalysis. No.
But when you're fighting with your significant other, or the kids are fighting with each other, you can always choose to not yell.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Brian, this has been a fun, very interesting podcast. If people want to get a hold of you, or people want to look you up, his name is Brian Klatt, Clate. You can just type that in on YouTube, and if you had a website or something where people can,
go ahead and drop it, and then send it to me, and I'll put it in the link.
Sure. So the company's website is www.awakenedexplorations.com. Also, the easiest way to get a hold of me is if you want to send a text to 860-341-1198. I know it's dangerous to put a phone number out on the internet,
right.
but it's on the website anyways.
Sure.
Either one of those two ways, look us up. If you're interested, reach out, and be happy to have a conversation.
Well, dropping that phone number, you left a choice.
And you do.
Right.
You can have conversations on the phone, and you can also do Zoom calls and all that. I take it.
Yep. So I can do phone. I can do Zoom. I do in person. I also specialize in outdoors.
Okay.
So individuals who want to explore, some deeper elements. I will frequently do outdoor work, and I find that to be it's great for people who are looking to change perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for doing the podcast. It was very interesting. I'd love to have you back maybe another time, and I'll let Rach close us out.
All right, you guys, it's come to the end. History is born on lines of hate. On here, we're trying to build lines of love and make you guys your best advocate. Like I said, I'm going to put Brian's stuff on there so you can get a hold of him. Also, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Infusion Health on Facebook, and subscribe, and
please leave a review.
Yes, please leave a review. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.